Dust motes danced in the weak rays of sunlight filtering through the grime-coated windows. Rick Grimes scanned the desolate aisles of the convenience store, his hand resting on the butt of his holstered revolver. The shelves were bare, stripped clean by survivors or ravaged by time. The air hung heavy with the stench of decay and the silence of the grave. This had become his reality, a desolate world where the living were outnumbered by the dead. He picked up a dented can of peaches, the label faded and unreadable. He shook it, the rattling of its contents a small victory in this endless search for sustenance. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. Atlanta. He clung to the word, the city a beacon of hope in his ravaged mind. Surely his wife, Lori, and son, Carl, would be there. A sudden noise from the back of the store shattered the silence. Rick spun around, his hand instinctively drawing his revolver. His heart pounded in his chest, each thud echoing the danger that permeated this new world. He crept towards the sound, his senses on high alert. A small figure stood huddled in the dim light filtering through the dusty window. Rain lashed against the glass, blurring the outline of the figure. Rick approached cautiously, his gun raised. "Hello?" he called out, his voice hoarse from disuse. The figure didn't respond, but slowly turned to face him. The blood drained from Rick's face. It was a little girl, no older than 7. Her skin was a sickly gray, her eyes clouded over. Chunks of her hair were missing, revealing the pallid flesh beneath. She took a step towards him, her jaw working soundlessly. Her teeth, he saw with a growing horror, were stained crimson. "Stay back!" he choked out, his finger tightening on the trigger. He didn't want to do it. He couldn't bring himself to fire, not at a child, but the creature before him, this mockery of innocence, left him no choice. It was her or him. The world dissolved into a blinding white light, the staccato bursts of gunfire echoing in Rick's ears. He was back in his patrol car, his partner Shane at the wheel, sirens wailing as they raced down the highway. The memory hit him like a physical blow, vivid and immediate. "Hang in there, partner." Shane's voice, strained but reassuring, cut through the haze of pain. Rick could feel the blood soaking through his shirt, the searing agony in his side. He remembered the suspect, the high-speed chase, the crash of metal and shattering glass. Then, darkness, the ambulance, the frantic voices of the paramedics, the prick of a needle in his arm, and then nothing. He had been unconscious, in a coma. How long? Days? Weeks? The thought sent a chill down his spine. He had lost time, precious time. He opened his eyes to a blinding white light, the sterile scent of disinfectant stinging his nostrils. He was in a hospital bed, his body heavy and uncooperative. He tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness forced him back down. Where was he? What had happened? Panic welled up inside him, constricting his chest. He fumbled for the call button, his fingers finding only empty air. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood up, his legs wobbly beneath him. The room was dark, the only light coming from the hallway outside. He stumbled towards the door, his hand reaching for the handle. The hallway was deserted, littered with overturned beds and medical equipment. Papers were scattered everywhere, the air thick with dust and the smell of decay. He saw a figure lying on the floor, its back to him. "Hello?" he called out, his voice raspy. The figure didn't move. "You okay, Rick?" The voice, deep and familiar, sent a jolt through him. He turned, and there, standing in the doorway, was Morgan Jones. Relief washed over Rick, so profound it almost brought him to his knees. He wasn't alone. "Morgan, what the hell happened?" Rick asked, his voice a croak. Morgan, a large man with weary eyes, looked at him with a mixture of pity and sadness. He explained everything, the virus, the dead coming back to life, the collapse of society. It was too much to process, too horrible to comprehend. Morgan's son, Duane, a quiet boy of 10, joined them. He looked at Rick with a mixture of curiosity and fear. The world, Morgan explained, was a different place now. The dead walked the earth, hungry for living flesh. "We have to be careful," Morgan said, his voice low and urgent. "We have to be quiet. We have to be strong. These were the rules of survival in this new world." Days turned into weeks as Rick slowly regained his strength. He learned to shoot again, to scavenge for supplies, to fight for survival in this terrifying new reality. But hope, the desperate hope of finding his family, kept him going. "Lori and Carl," he said one evening, tracing their names in the dust covering the table. "They're alive. I know it." "There's a refugee camp in Atlanta," Morgan said, his voice gentle. "That's where they say the government is. That's where we're going." Atlanta. The word resonated with hope, a beacon in the darkness. Rick knew he had to go there, had to find his family. Saying goodbye to Morgan and Duane was hard. They had saved his life, given him shelter and hope in his darkest hour. "Take care of yourself, Rick," Morgan said, his voice rough with emotion. And if you find your family, tell them Morgan and Duane said hello. The road to Atlanta was long and perilous. Rick encountered the dead at every turn, their moans a constant reminder of the horrors that awaited him. He had grown accustomed to the violence, the necessity of taking a life to preserve his own, but nothing could have prepared him for what he encountered next. He had stopped at a deserted gas station, hoping to find fuel or supplies. That's when he saw him. Leon, his old partner from the force, slumped against the gas pump. "Leon?" Rick whispered, his voice catching in his throat. Leon's head snapped up, his eyes vacant and white. He lunged at Rick, a guttural growl escaping his throat. Rick stumbled back, his hand instinctively reaching for his gun. He didn't want to do it, but he knew he had no choice. Atlanta. The city loomed before him, a skyline of shattered glass and twisted metal. Smoke billowed from buildings, a testament to the destruction that had ravaged the city. The streets were eerily deserted, littered with abandoned cars and the remnants of a life extinguished. The stench of death hung heavy in the air, a grim welcome to the city of the dead. He had encountered a man on the outskirts of the city, a farmer who had lost everything. He had given Rick his horse, a magnificent chestnut mare, and pointed him towards the city center. "Godspeed, son," the farmer had said, his voice heavy with despair. "May you find what you're looking for." As Rick rode deeper into the city, the silence became oppressive. He could hear the moans of the dead echoing from the alleys, a constant reminder of the danger that surrounded him. The city was a tomb, and he was trapped inside. He dismounted his horse, tying the reins to a lamppost. He had found a tank, abandoned in the middle of the street. It was a small glimmer of hope in this desolate landscape. He climbed inside, his hand closing around the cold metal of the radio. He flicked the switch, hoping against hope for a sign of life. The speaker crackled to life, a burst of static filling the silence. He turned the dial, his heart pounding in his chest. And then, he heard it. A voice, faint but clear, cutting through the static. "Hey, you! The one with the Colt python!" The voice sent a shiver down his spine. Someone was out there. Someone knew who he was. He grabbed the microphone, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Hello? Who's out there?"